Great, it's official. Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you here with us on this call tonight. You are joining um, a Zoom session, a collaboration between the Diabetes Link and Blue Circle Health. I'm going to introduce myself and just give you a really as quick as I possibly can synopsis of who the Diabetes Link is in case you don't know about us. Then I'm going to pass it to Carrie, who is our guest presenter tonight and our resident expert, and let Carrie tell you a little bit about why she's here and what Blue Circle Health does. We, both of us, are national nonprofits that work together and have a lot of collaborating work, and we'll tell you about that a little bit more. Um, but just for a quick introduction, you can see my name. For those of you that can't, my name is Diane. Here at the Diabetes Link, I am the Director of Programs and Community. What that means is I oversee all of the great things that we do that have impact and touch our young adults, our college chapters, our online communities, our off to college programming, like this session tonight, our fellowships, our leadership opportunities, basically anything that we offer out to young adults. I am also a mom, a parent of a teenage daughter, a 16-year-old with type 1. And if you were here earlier, I also am a step parent of another high school junior. So we have two looking into college right now. And I'm a parent of a step parent of a college junior. He's at University of Tampa in Florida. So I very much relate to all of you professionally for sure. I interact with a lot of your students or potential college students on a regular basis, and my team does across the country. And I also get it personally because I am right here with you in this space doing applications, stressing about what my daughter's going to do when I am not there to walk into her room when she has another low in the middle of the night. So I'm really glad you guys can be here. I'm excited to be a part of this presentation. Carrie, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Matuzin. I will click through to, there we go. There's my little introduction. All right, so I've been living with type 1 diabetes myself for 22 years. I've navigated many holidays, including those during those early days for being away from home. I'm from the Philadelphia area, and I went to college 2 hours away from my parents' home. So I was close enough that I didn't need to fly to get home, but also far enough away that the holidays were the biggest time spent at home. So that's some of my personal background and I can talk about type 1. But professionally, I'm the case manager at Blue Circle Health. If you're not familiar with Blue Circle Health, we're a nonprofit that provides free and virtual diabetes care, education, and support to adults with T1D. We're currently enrolling people across 17 states and Washington, D.C., with more to come. And I believe Diane even has a link to share with you if you want to learn even more about us. But really wanted to talk about the holidays are a tricky time. We're going to be navigating some blood sugars through food, stress, and changes in routine, all while trying to enjoy holiday and time away from school. So I wanted to highlight what that can look like for you and also just a little bit of how Blue Circle Health can help out wherever needed. So I also want to thank the Diabetes Link for inviting me to be part of this webinar. Really enjoy being able to share what I've learned and experience with various holidays. I really appreciate being able to share what Blue Circle Health and what we can offer as an additional resource to young adults and further on to their family. All right, so holidays can be stressful, they can be joyful, especially when young adults are returning home with changes in their independence with diabetes management. So tonight, I want to make sure that that reunion is more smooth with some tools and language in order to build a shared understanding. So our goals for today are going to be preparing students and families for navigating holidays at home, exploring shifting expectations around independence with diabetes management, and identify some tools to handle some sensitive topics, including those around food and health. All right, so we do have an agenda. Throw it up here, but really it's just the title of my slides. But we'll get started with this transition. All right, so picture it. It's your freshman year of college. So these are the people with T1D. And it's going to be your first return home from a long break. And you've had a couple of weeks or months to get used to this newfound independence on life and with diabetes. And now you get to go home to see your friends and your family. It may have been a very short time away from home, but you have changed. Your parents have also been waiting for this time for their child to come home, and they've spent many years raising you. some amount of that time probably being the main people involved with your diabetes care. I can guarantee you that it's going to be really easy for them to slip back into a caregiver mode part of parenting, as this is what they're most used to. Anyone see where this is going? There's going to be a new version of you meeting an old version of home. So yes, there's going to be tension. There could be arguments or comments about how some things might not be the preferred way. Because your diabetes care is probably different from when you lived at home. So you're up to speed, but your parents and family might not be. While this probably sounds like a perfect storm for family arguments, it doesn't have to be that way. And this holiday does not need to be the same as the last one. It also doesn't have to set the tone for all the future ones. So keep in mind as you're moving through your first holidays back at home that it's natural for parents to worry and it's natural for students to want to flex their independence. All right, so I have a question for you. Feel free to put it in the chat. But what do you let me read first. When you think about going home for the holidays, what's one thing that excites you and maybe what's one thing that makes you nervous?
I'm keeping an eye on the chat, Carrie, but if I'm going to
Okay.
come off you and answer this from my parent perspective,
I'll go for it.
not that my daughter with T1D is away at college yet, but going back to we do have that college student who's coming back home. I think we're always excited to eat together. He's excited to have the food that he knows, access to a kitchen. I'm excited to cook for him. And some of the things that make us nervous is like, are we going to all get along? Because he has a different routine. I'm just candidly, he literally cooks at 2 a.m. We're all asleep and I hear the fryer going downstairs or like the air fryer going. Are we going to be able to like get along? So those are mine. I'm looking to see if we've got happening in the chat. I think we do have, let's see. I'm going to expand this. Hang on one second.
That's okay. Yeah, that's definitely something that, yeah, I can imagine. And I'm sure that's going to extend to your T1D child once they're off at college. But yeah, air fryers are unnaturally loud, especially when after the sun is on down. So I know where that's coming from.
Yeah. We do have a comment in the chat from Michelle
Okay.
also as a parent perspective, excitement seeing how they've matured and grown and nervous that the conversations might be around T1D. That's really real. Like, how do you fit it in? How do you have that conversation? How do you make it not feel like every question that you ask is about how's diabetes going, but also, when you have access to them, you want to get those salient points and you want to like be reassured and make sure you kind of get that piece in while you can.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, very valid. Love what you're excited for, and also just very valid concerns to have. Um, yeah, for me during these school breaks, I was always really looking forward to the break from school and from classes. I was also looking forward to taking a break from being solely responsible for myself. It's really tough learning to be an adult and going to school and having the lack of backup that I was used to with diabetes care. Like, Diane, I'm sure you're doing a lot right now, and I'm sure your daughter appreciates it. And then it's tough to lose that as just that extra little double check over your shoulder sometimes.
Yep.
Um, I was really nervous about packing to go home, mostly with my diabetes stuff. So back at that age, I wasn't used to packing to travel, especially with diabetes. It's a lot easier now, but learning was a little bit tough. So going home, even though that was probably the safest place for me to be and have everything that I needed, I did also fear that I would forget something and really look like I didn't know how to take care of myself. And did I ever tell my mom this fear? No. Would it made it easier if I did? Probably. But with the whole return home, it might feel overwhelming at this time. If it has in the past, consider breaking it down from I want it to be good this year into some more concrete ways that it can happen. Packing's a really simple one to get started with. Everyone has their own packing methods. So now's a good time to practice what yours is. Maybe it's writing down a list of those important things like your laptop, your phone, your insulin. Maybe it's putting stuff in a specific place. Maybe it's reviewing your packed items with mom over the phone before you leave. There's no right answer as long as it works for you. And that's kind of going to be like a theme for the night, that there's no right way to do it. All right, so now that you've kind of pictured what could or did happen, let's plan on how we can make it a more enjoyable family time. Okay, Okay, so for anyone who has made this return home for a holiday or a break, I'd love to hear what kind of challenges came up between you, your parents, or caregivers. If we have any teens or young adults in there, feel free to put it in the chat. Uh, I can also keep going about some of these friction points, some ones that we might think of, being that parents might notice some changes in management style with timing of checks, use of devices, either the new use or lack of use, maybe carb counting might have changed. And the student might be saying, my way works and it's different, but it's working. No matter when you were diagnosed with type 1, a lot can change in between the times that you see your family. Especially if you were diagnosed as a kid or a teen, it's really common for parents to hold on to a protectiveness that came with your childhood. They had their own experience of that time in your life, and it may be entirely different from yours. And then you, the person they spent so much time worrying about, leaves and you're no longer under their supervision. Now, if I had a diabetes vacation, I would love it. I would do so many things. But as a parent, that's not going to feel so much as a vacation. It's probably going to feel a little bit closer to if their cell phone were to go down. So the person with type 1 will keep on going. They'll be learning and adapting, and that's amazing. Parents, on the other hand, can miss out on how much independence has already been achieved. So they will likely revert back to a caregiver mode when you're back together. And this may be out of habit. It might be from not having a fully formed relationship with this new version of you. Most likely, though, it is coming from a place of love and a fear that something is going to be missed, putting you in danger. So give your parents time and also give them information, as parents cannot learn about the new you if they're not allowed to. So I want to give some practical strategies. So as a young adult, don't forget the power of your voice. Give your family feedback and use your new adult communication skills in order to develop a new version of your relationship. Let's be honest, no matter what happens, the relationship between you and your parents has changed that moment that you leave from college. So both you and your parents cannot both be in charge of diabetes at the same time. As an adult, you're the one in charge. Sorry, parents, but they are the ones who have been managing diabetes with the day-to-day tasks. But your preparation has helped them to get there. So I don't want to discount any abilities or any work that's been put in. Instead, aim to agree on when and how parents should be kept in the loop. Parents take a step back, and that can be really hard. It's also difficult when there are many differences in how these tasks are being managed. Differences are okay, and it's also okay to find them difficult. It's just important that these differences do respect a focus on safety. Especially when safety is involved, the stances can get a little bit harder to move. So it might be easier to revert back to a preteen attitude. Using I statements is actually going to be more productive. An I statement puts your view first rather than a blame. So an example of this is, I feel more comfortable when I know your blood sugar, as opposed to, you should just tell me your blood sugar when I ask. A simple sentence structure shift can create an environment that allows for more productive conversation rather than blaming and probably some yelling between the parent and the kid. So these statements can also help in establishing what works for you now. Something along the lines of, I found that X works for me now, even though X worked for me in the past. I prefer to continue doing what's worked for me recently. If you feel any pushback, consider adding in more details, like, I know this works for me because of X. This extra detail shows the thought that you put into your decisions and can really show your parents that you're not just making choices based on what's easier. It's really the grown-up version of mass, show your work. Acknowledging the other person's statements can also move the conversation forward, and it can really be easy to get sucked into an endless loop of, I feel I can do it this way and I feel like it won't work. Both are I statements, but they're not going to get you anywhere. So adding in a recap of what you heard can ensure that both of you are on the same page about the next idea. So I have an example of the perfect conversation that could happen. So with a young adult, and they say, I feel I'm okay managing my diabetes without reporting numbers to you every meal. A great parent response could be, I hear that you don't want to check in as often. I feel worried that a bolus will be missed if I don't check in each meal. So this could go a bunch of different ways, but we're going to look at the perfect way for the young adult to respond, being that, I hear that you're concerned about me missing a bolus. I've been checking my blood sugar before each meal. Sometimes I forget my bolus until right after I eat, And I found that my 3 p.m. alarm for class reminds me that to check in, make sure I got enough insulin. And a parent could focus on those missed boluses, or they could say, thank you for telling me what's been happening in the past, and hear that you have a backup plan in case you forgot your shot. You don't have class right now. During this break, can we come up with another idea to keep you safe? That is the perfect conversation. I know it won't go this way. It'll take some steps to get here, but practice will help. All right. And parents, I know that these are your kids. You've had to learn diabetes for them. You've had to take care of them, teach them, and honestly would protect them from anything. You've probably also seen them make some not so great decisions, maybe forget some basics. But keep in mind that they have gotten this far. If they've made it back to you alive, that means that you've done something right to get this far. So your job now is to back off on diabetes a little bit and focus on updating your relationship with your child now that they're an adult. Talking to them as adults will help this relationship to grow and evolve. So use those I statements pretty strongly. If you ever feel like you need help or some peer support, check out the resources that the Diabetes Link has with the parents and caregivers of college students with diabetes. I'll look for Diane to hop in because this is her specialty.
Thanks, Carrie. That was a great setup. Yes, I'm going to drop a resource in the chat as well here. It's one of our most popular, most requested ones, a family communication agreement format. I know, Carrie, you're going to talk about this in a little bit as well, but I'm dropping that resource in there also because if you start clicking on that link, you'll see that on our resource hub, we have like 40 to 50 different sets of resources, including this recording will go there after this. To refer back to. So if like you're at the point of coming home or feeling activated or just like need some reminders of what do we talk about or how do I center my young adults experience and not my own, or they're not listening to me, this resource hub is a great place to go and check things out. One of the things that come up in conversation when I talk to fellow parents who are feeling all of the worry and stress and the hesitancy is the shift in relationship. And Carrie, you said this, but one of the examples we use is, it's like being on the team. You're not their head coach anymore. You're now a teammate with them. You're a teammate alongside of them. And so teammates, pass to each other and take turns and support each other, but you're not the head coach or like, driving the ship at this point. And that's really hard. I can say that has been really, really hard. But it's really important to do because you're setting them up the tools for success in their own management. And yes, even at the expense of an A1C number or certain, like a glucose range that maybe you're used to seeing or you would prefer to see.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's so many good resources on the Diabetes Link. I use it all the time. I have for we were talking how it's been like a decade that I've been doing some sort of work, even when it was called the College Diabetes Network. So I'm a strong believer in all the Resource Hub has to offer. But yeah, exactly what Diane said. And this relationship, it's going to be hard. It's going to take some compromise. So parents, you're allowed to be hesitant about this time in your child's life. And then for the young adults, you're allowed to be the current version of yourself, even in a space that's more familiar with the past version of you. So I'd love you to take some time for a reflection question of what's one area of diabetes management where you want some more independence, and what's an area where you could still use some help. So this, even if you don't want to answer this question now, or if you want to take it back to anybody else in your family, it's a good one to start to think about to help to figure out how this relationship can morph from parent being a coach to parent being that guide that's sitting on the bench with you. I don't know my sports terms very well, but being on the team with you.
Carrie, while people are reflecting on that, and I hear you that they may totally fine to just take it back and reflect personally. I know some of the things that we talk about, again, from the parent side, is, you started this, packing, ready to come home. Maybe as a parent saying like, hey, remember you have this much insulin, X, Y, this quantity here. Um, you don't have to pack all of that to come home. Or, hey, let's just have a conversation and talk about like what supplies I can help you by telling you what supplies you have left at the house here so that you can make a decision about what you might need to bring or want to bring from you from school and not by proactively having that conversation and showing up with curiosity or kind of saying, hey, would it help you if I just kind of ran through the stuff that we still have sitting here? Then that empowers them and shows kind of showing up as that teammate and then helps your young adult be like, oh, yeah, I should probably think about packing my diabetes stuff. Should probably like, oh, I'm gonna have to bring some stuff home, huh? Or mom or dad or whomever, surely they have everything. But if you identify it ahead of time, then once everyone gets home, there's not that mad dash of like, what? I thought you had this here. What? I thought you would have brought it with you.
Yeah,
Well,
having
packing
that conversation. Having that conversation is great, and you're kind of prompting some questions more gently rather than just saying like, how much insulin are you bringing home, or how much pump supplies do you have? Instead of that, can come off as a really harsh question. And
yep.
Diane, you're posing it in a way that shows the curiosity. That's more that a teammate or a friend, someone who's not so authoritative would do. And that makes it elevates the relationship more from parent and child to adults. Um, but young adults, just remember that it's okay to still want and need that support. Being
Mm-hmm.
an adult doesn't mean that you have to be 100% independent 100% of the time. Being an adult means that you need to have a plan for 100% of your needs, but that you can spread out those tasks as needed.
That's a great way of saying that, Carrie. I'm going to adopt that. Doesn't mean you have to do it all, but you need to have a plan and have thought about the things and then know who to tap in, whether
Yeah.
it's your roommate or a friend or your parent still, because we want to help. We want to be your counted on people.
Yeah, I use that quite a bit, especially with like diabetes burnout. Like as long as you're staying alive, you don't have to do all of the tasks. So as you're making it bigger, and especially if it's like the first time coming home or packing on your own, having that extra help just as a backup can be really nice.
Yeah.
All right, and then I wanted to focus on family agreements, and Diane, you dropped that resource that I was going to talk about too. So make sure that you have that opened up if you haven't seen it already. But at this point, you've had some conversations about what has changed between and what help is needed, how everyone is feeling. It's a lot to keep in mind, especially as the days go on with the break. So consider creating some small agreements for your family before the holidays. They can be as simple as if I need help, I'll ask. The parents will check in once a day, not every hour, and we'll deflect the weird family comments together. Just as with the rest of life, setting boundaries can help protect yourself from stress as well as create a healthier relationship with family. So check in with yourself about what has caused issues or what you anticipate might cause issues before starting a conversation with your family. And parents, use this time to speak up, voice the concerns that you have. You'll get a lot farther by saying them out loud and discussing them rather than by saying them as a rule. The rule without discussion is going to come off as a demand, which is going to be a very strong potential for things not going well. So if you made a family connection agreement or communication agreement already, revisit this and consider making some changes or even revamping it entirely for holidays or for long stretches at home. If it's not something that you've taken a look at, um, go check it out, especially if this kind of conversation is not the norm for your family. These agreements are flexible. They're not forever. They're just a starting point, and they can be used for different situations. So check back after each visit at home, maybe after each holiday party, whenever it really feels best, to see what part of the agreements worked, what did not, and what needs to evolve as everyone grows. And some example questions that you can discuss for your agreement could be things like, what expectations are shifting now that I'm back at home? What can both sides agree on what support looks like during the holidays? What traditions might need to be rethought to reduce stress? How do we handle differing opinions with an extended family member? Or how do we reset after a conflict around management? The last one being really important because learning, especially if you had a rocky relationship as a teenager with your parents, then it's not going to go perfect overnight. So there, just expect that there could be some conflict. So having a plan on how to resolve that can be very helpful. All right. So aside from T1D, it is not uncommon for relatives to have uncomfortable or some odd questions and comments. So questions like, are you dating anyone? Or what are you doing after you finish school? Happen to all young adults. So with this in mind, consider checking in with friends at school about what they might do, what they want to complain about, or what they want to say to the family members that are bringing up these questions. You can even practice these before you leave for home. Uh, and then some common scenarios that are more type 1 related. Relatives might additionally comment on food choices, your weight, appearance, or your insulin delivery choices. So while they're not okay topics to comment on, being prepared for them to happen can make the moment quite a bit easier. There'll also be some pressure to join traditions that are centered around food, and that can be a really sticky situation. And comfort here varies a lot between people. This can come up as you examine your personal relationship with food, with family, and with culture. So ahead of the holidays, consider reflecting on this as deeply as you feel would be helpful. All right, so let's think of some ways that we can combat these scenarios. One is to pre-plan some responses. So for questions about how you're doing something, you can say something along the lines of, I'm comfortable with my choices. Thanks for caring. Not really directly answering what they're asking about, but also not making the situation a bigger issue for everybody else around you. For questions about why you're doing or not doing something, you can say something like, I need to take care of my health so that I can feel my best for today. If you get any pushback on either of these areas, you can use a phrase like, I've been managing on my own for a while now, so I'm confident in what I'm doing. If you get questions about what you're doing, consider about what level you want to explain, as well as the age group that's asking. Also think of the younger ones around you. There are kids that you probably see at holidays or events, and they change a lot too. They're also more unfiltered and may ask some questions. I've been asked many times, like, what's that thing on your arm? Or did you beep? Are you clicking? I think about what kind of age appropriate responses I can have for these kinds of questions. For the youngest kids, I say something like, this helps me to stay healthy so that I can keep playing with you. For the younger elementary school kids, sometimes I'll just name type 1 diabetes in its full name, or I'll name what a device is or what shots do. And for even older kids, I'll add even more detail. Answering these kids' questions can help them to learn, but it can also put other adults at ease by modeling how to talk about a health condition and also build a relationship that's not going to lead with, oh, we don't talk about that. So that can be very helpful, especially if you have some more extended family that are more prone to the weird questions. If they can view you talking appropriately to somebody else, they can learn without having to point out the fact that they've said something uncomfortable before.
If I can I
Yeah,
add in really quickly
go
here,
for it.
sorry to interrupt you, because
Yeah.
this is such an important topic and conversation because it is so nuanced for anyone living with diabetes and just in around holidays and food in general. Just one more plug. On the Resource Hub, we recently launched a nutrition topic. So there's a lot of extra great resources there. They're not tagged as like off to college or transition, they're tagged as nutrition, but a lot of things about navigating cultural considerations, cutting through the noise around nutrition, you know, uh, we kind of call it like building a plate, diabetes, enjoying food, nourishment, how to talk to people, empowered eating. So if it would be helpful to a young adult or a parent to like kind of have some extra information or talking points or resources in their arsenal before, especially, you know, heading around for food centric holidays, I would love to encourage anyone to go check those out.
That's like an amazing resource because food is just tricky at this age in general, and then throwing diabetes on top of it and extended family. Everyone's got that weird uncle somewhere that says the strange things. So just having that as a resource to help prepare ahead of time, or even to go back to reflect on afterwards, can help your food relationship to stay healthier for longer. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so even though I gave some of those examples as what you can say to kids, you can use the same responses for adults. And You can even stop there. Sharing more is really your choice, and it's a sign of a deeper relationship. So evaluate who's going to be at any event, who you feel is worthy for a level of relationship where you do share deeper thoughts or even explain in more detail about your life. Um, and then humor is a route that some people choose to take. I'm one of them. I do it a lot, sometimes not to the best of outcomes, but a bit of asking a ridiculous question, get a ridiculous answer, can very easily show the other person how their comment was out of line. Can be useful in building some relationships of people who just genuinely didn't notice what they were saying was out of line. But it can also further separate those weak relationships. So choose wisely. You can also check in with parents if there are some relatives that you feel like would be a no-go for. Having a plan for some specific relatives can help to balance maintaining your boundaries as well as the extended family piece. Redirection is another great strategy. Maybe you don't know what you're doing after you graduate. Well, let's tell them about all the things that you have been up to that's going to lead to something. Is maybe they'll say that your Omnipod is pointing out or sticking out from under your shirt. Well, let's talk about all the progress of the type 1 diabetes technology over the past few years. It's amazing. The goal is to really change the direction of the conversation to very gracefully avoid an uncomfortable situation. And firm boundary settings is another perfectly acceptable response. If an inappropriate question or comment is made, then calling it out as inappropriate will establish yourself as someone who is not going to accept that type of behavior, even if it is from a family member. And parents can have a role in running some interference when needed. As parents, you know the family just as well, probably even better. So can you anticipate which family members might cause some friction? Do you know what topics could easily trigger your child? If so, be on the lookout and run some interference when needed. And if you can identify where interference is likely needed ahead of time, have a family discussion so that everyone is prepared with a plan. Support people are appreciated, especially if the level of support can be determined easily and early on. So communication is really key here. While the golden rule is to treat others how you want to be treated, keep in mind the platinum rule of treat others how they want to be treated. Know what everyone can benefit from so that there's less likely chance that someone's going to be blindsided by a family member's response to an awkward question, especially if that response could be embarrassing or unintentionally hurtful to the person with type 1. And then a fun question for the group, for anyone who has type 1, of what's a phrase that you wish you could say back when someone makes a comment? I feel like this is a fun icebreaker question for people with T1D of like, what have you done? Or what has someone asked you? Those are just fun ones to share and make for a good story years on, down the road. But parents, a more serious question of how can you step in to deflect comments without embarrassing your young adults? That can be a question for yourself and also to share with your young adults. And young adults, if something wasn't covered on this, think about what else could be helpful. If you think of it now and want to throw it in the chat, feel free to let me know. If not, that can be a good discussion to have with your parents. All right, so we've covered how young adults have changed while away from home. But what about the other side? What has not changed at home? This can lead to some tension among the family. So while you, as a person with type 1 or just a college student in general is away, your sleep schedule, your eating schedule, and your social life have also changed. And there's a very good chance that these no longer align with your parents' home. Like it's not acceptable to use the air fryer at 2 a.m. So compromise is really the key here. Students, just remember that this is your parents' home and that you may have some younger siblings who are around to watch. And parents, also remember that your child is used to a different lifestyle than when they were in high school. So treating the situation as a guest in both directions can really help to balance freedom and restraint. Say that your family has survived the short Thanksgiving break. What about the longer winter break? Where the idea of being or having a guest gets a little bit old, this might be a time where some more sensitive topics can cause an issue. The communication is really important, like I said, and communicating a goal for your time at home can be very helpful. If the student's coming home, they can have a goal. Maybe it's visiting family, maybe it's doing different activities, or just recharging from school. If you know the goal of the time at home, that can help to set some expectations for each other. So for example, if your goal is to visit family, The young adult would be very rude to sleep in late and have plans every single day and avoid that main goal. However, if you come home and your goal is to recharge, the parents might be a little bit rude for expecting you to get up early or to plan really early morning activities without your input. And then thinking about alcohol and social life, those are some tough conversations for anyone, regardless of diabetes. I statements are really key here. If you want to elevate your relationship from parent and child to two adults, both parties were really going to need to push the comfort levels a bit in order to have a productive conversation. Now, instead of saying something like, you have an 11 p.m. curfew, aim for a, I feel uncomfortable not knowing when you'll be home because of X. And X could be because of the safety of the area, could be the younger children in your house, could be work schedule, car logistics. It can really be anything, as long as you're sharing what it is that's going on behind what could have been a demand. And acknowledge that some of these topics are really sensitive and aim to do so without judgment, both for the parents and for young adults. Everybody's learning here, and learning together is going to be much more productive than just having one party be the rule maker. And safety is a valid and crucial point here when we're discussing alcohol. So I encourage you all to discuss this topic, no matter the age of the young adults. Ignoring a topic does not make it disappear, and hiding it doesn't lead to any form of safety. And also, thinking about siblings here, ideally you'll have taken this advice and will avoid all tension. However, that's going to take a little bit of work, and that's normal if you're not ready to go right off the bat at this first holiday. Just keep in mind that if there are siblings without diabetes, they might be seeing or feeling the tension in the home. We've already covered having adult level conversations between parents and young adults. Try including those younger or just siblings without type 1 in the family so that that bond can extend throughout the family and create even a starter for future conversations for the younger kids. And then thinking about parents reverting back to a caregiver mode. When the time comes, you may have the best intentions in practice and still find that parents, either yourself or that you're seeing, are going into a caretaker mode. You may also see the young adults revert back into a teen mode. I know I did that all the time going back to my parents' house. It was just something about going through that threshold. So both of these are normal. We're not expecting perfection, just progress. And remember that Thanksgiving of 2025 is not your only holiday. You'll have many more ahead in order to work on this. The goal is to continue working on growth. If either party notices a slip back into the previous parent or teen mode, find a gentle way to highlight it. You can even practice this ahead of time. It can be, Mom, you're doing that thing again, or Dad, you're not following the agreement that we planned on, or Honey, I hear some irritation in your voice when we're following the plan. A gentle reminder can help to reduce the chance of a shouting match or even a full-on return to those original modes. All right, and then a big one is students feeling that pressure to perform management perfectly at home. I know that I want to do my best in front of people, and that diabetes is hard. It is quite literally my job. And I still have that voice in the back of my head that's telling me to hide stuff that's not perfect about my diabetes. It's a really hard feeling to get rid of. Parents, you might have the same voice too. Maybe it's not about diabetes. So keep this in mind. Your young adult might have that voice. And for that moment, it's okay to view them as the little kids that you once knew them as, and try to give them some grace so that they don't have to feel like they're being perfect all the time. At the same time, avoid being the diabetes police, as no one likes having a constant observer. If you're not sure if you're approaching that diabetes police behavior as a parent, try imagining the behavior in relation to a non-T1D issue. Would it not feel good being done to you? If not, then you might be entering that policing area. And young adults, give yourself some grace. Your parents and family will not judge and probably might not even notice some of the imperfections in your care. So try your best and consider that if this is a worry enough, that it could be added onto the family agreement as something to talk about. So as always, voice your concerns. If as a parent you see behavior that worries you, bring it up as an observation and without judgment. As someone with T1D, if you're not feeling the support that's needed, do that same thing. So aim to acknowledge sensitivity without judgment for all topics, even if it wasn't covered here in the slide. If you ever feel really lost, consider a script like, I know you care, but I found a system that works for me at school. Can we talk about what makes you feel comfortable too?
I love that, Carrie, especially your note about performing. I think that, like, at least for me as a parent, that really hit home because, assuming good intent and everyone's trying so hard. You're a young
Mhm.
adult. And I remember being a young adult coming home from college, even though it was a long time ago. Um, but you want to prove that you've got it. Your parents, your extended family, the last time you saw them, they were all supporting you, maybe heading off to college or to the next chapter of your life. They're all excited. They want to hear about it. There's a lot of like excitement, but also anticipation and pressure about how are you doing? Are you making good? We're all investing in you. We're all here for you. We're, centering you. And that can be really overwhelming. So that perform piece really just landed with me. And honestly, I'm going to keep it in mind for our own holidays here that it's not about what are you doing? How are you doing? Are you staying on top of this? Are you getting that? Are you meeting people? It's that we're all learning the same way that as parents and caregivers with diabetes management, we had to learn as well. I've messed up
Mhm.
plenty of times and I continue to mess up, in making a judgment or trying to get the carb count right. Or is this a pump failure? Or is the cannula bent? Or is it just a really sticky high? Like that's going to happen to all of us, including our young adults and the perform piece. That really landed. And that's a really helpful way to say it. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And to the parent, I don't have the chat open, so I don't know which parent said it about worrying about, focusing too much. Um, yeah, if you focus too much on it, then that might reinforce that need to perform. So just really keep in mind that your child is a young adult, period, who just happens to have diabetes. So there's more to them than that. And if you're focusing more on the person that they're becoming, there's going to be less focus on their diabetes and less pressure to have to perform.
Yep. Right.
Right. So then to recap, a couple of things I've said many times, but respect for each other as you're entering, both of you are entering a new version of your relationship with parents not having to be as so much overseers and children becoming adults. Communication will really grow this relationship. Compromise and being willing to practice some flexibility can help both sides to see each other's points of view. And a shared responsibility will win over a single ownership with an overseer. And this is tough. It's going to take some time to practice it, and you might not even feel like you ever get it right. But there are definitely resources to help. So Diana's brought up some of the great resources that the Diabetes Link has to offer. Blue Circle Health can also offer some support, whether it's the T1D support, we also have endocrinology and diabetes education for some more practical support, myself with case management and diabetes counseling to help just to make sure that life is feeling smooth as you're growing with T1D. And many of our team have T1D also, so we can talk both on a professional and personal level, which just adds a little bit extra, I think, as we see with the staff with the Diabetes Link of just having that inside knowledge of what it's like. So just to really sum it up, holidays can be a great time to reconnect and to reset, not just for diabetes, but for your family's whole growing relationship.
That is a great segue, Carrie. Great wrap up, but also a great segue into a question that we just got in the chat.
Oh
So
yeah, go for it.
I am going to read that out, but also encourage everyone else. We do have about 10 or 12 minutes left. Um, yes, Carrie has wrapped her like incredible presentation with a lot of great nuggets and kind of thought-provoking suggestions for both sides. Um, but yes, if you're coming up with a question or there's something that you thought of as we were presenting, go ahead and drop it in the chat now. Carrie, I'm going to read this one out and maybe we can both kind of try to respond to it. This came
Sure.
from Kim, who's with us. Kim said, this is a parent perspective. How, as a parent, do you address issues of your child developing unhealthy habits in terms of T1D management or lack of management? New independence doesn't always result in good decisions. And I have a couple of thoughts there, but I'm wondering if, um, Carrie, you want to respond to that as well from the like kind of the T1D side.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, that's a great question, a great concern to have, Kim. Yeah, thinking. Sometimes even taking T1D out of it can make it a little bit clearer. So maybe you'd have a different perspective on if you saw a potentially unhealthy behavior that your child is creating, like maybe it's not sleeping as well, or alcohol, or anything like that. If that helps you to shift the view, if you feel more confident in a non-type 1 diabetes related topic, aim for that way. If both seem like a struggle, really aiming for that curiosity and approaching without the judgment, because I remember being a teen, if anything felt like someone was judging me, it was so easy to snap back at it and not feel any growth. But to have someone approach me as someone who's willing to learn on what's going through my head just gives a huge perspective shift, and it's a lot easier to get a response that's more productive.
That's a great insight. I'm going to piggyback on just a little bit. Um, Kim, I get this, and again, having a 16-year-old daughter at home, I struggle with this personally right now because, some of my strategy is, and we talk about this here at the link as well, is to start early, start easing into, kind of start loosening the reins or giving them some more control a little bit at a time heading into college. And so I'm trying to practice some of that at home as well. Uh, I'll give you an example that looks like my daughter manages her own site rotation schedule now, whereas I used to always have it on my calendar and like clockwork it every 3 days. We recently had an endo visit and her sites are rotating 3.5 every 4, maybe sometimes every 5 days. That's not great. Um, but I also had to keep it in perspective that she's practicing and learning and that I can give her some reminders. And sometimes it's helpful when it doesn't come from me. When it came, she has a great relationship with her endo to say, like, hey, this is with the reason why this is going to help you. This is going to help your insulin sensitivity or help you not have to push so much insulin if you do kind of stay on top of your rotations. I know it's a pain and I know, it's like an annoying thing you have to do every 3 days. But if you can do stay on top of that, this is why. Um, so I think that's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but a lot we do talk about this a lot here. And I think as a parent perspective, the only thing that I can encourage is assume good intent. Um, they may not be making the decisions you would make or I would make. They are very likely making the best decisions they can with the tools that they're working with at the time. And you mentioned specifically like T1D management or lack of management. Um, the significant change for them is that none of this is in a silo anymore, right? And they've juggled high school and school and extracurriculars, but in the home that they've lived in for a long time or with your support, they're very likely managing the best they damn well can at a lot of new things. So it's taking the lens off of just T1D management and saying, hey, how are you managing at school? I know there's a lot of new stuff. I've noticed some things and I would love to ask you some questions about it, but I want to know how it feels juggling all of this. Where might you need some support? What might be happening that we're seeing, numbers like this? I think whenever we can show up with that, assuming that they are trying their best, because a lot of times they are, and also that doesn't necessarily mean that they're remembering to take insulin at all. Maybe they're not bolusing for any of their meals because they're trying to figure out getting to the food hall in between their two classes that are on the opposite sides of campus, scarfing down something to eat while they're cramming for this test that's happening, and then this roommate, and then their blood sugar is also going low or going high, or they forgot to change their site that morning. Just an understanding on our part that they are juggling so much more than they were. And this is at this point, this is all still really, really new to them. Trying to give them a little bit of grace and showing up with curiosity, assuming that they're trying to make good decisions and they might need some more support. So, kind of some of those questions like Carrie, how you posed, what do you need? How could I help you? Why might this be happening? And also not just asking about and not just framing it around type 1 diabetes, but, how is it managing and juggling things at school? It's hard. It's hard when you know that they're maybe making decisions or actions that are not in their best interests, and that's diabetes related or not. Um, that's really hard. And I don't have the answer to how to feel about that, but I do make that recommendation based on what we've heard from other young adults in our college chapters in our network.
Yeah, that's a great response. Something else that you said in there, and I hope that it's something that you've actually voiced to your daughter of it's hard. That maybe she's rotating her sights the best that she can just by saying, "Hey, I know this is hard and it's important." It makes such a difference as opposed to when we've spent our lives being told you have to give insulin, you have to count your carbs, you have to change your sights, you have to prick your finger, you have to change. I could go on forever and no one wants to listen to me do that. But it's so easy to add on the tasks and forget that there's an emotion that goes into them. So it's yes, I know I need to change my Dexcom today, that it's going to expire in an hour, but I don't want to. And
Mhm.
if to have somebody say to me, "Hey, I know it's hard," can sometimes, and just put a period there, can sometimes just acknowledge that there is that part that's usually held deep inside of people with type 1 diabetes that often doesn't get seen. So when somebody sees us without us having to tell them, it just kind of opens up, kind of like lets that breath out a tiny bit to then make room for what is the next task that I can do, or yes, I can trust this person in order to ask them for help or allow them to help me.
That's a great way of putting it, Carrie. Like just the period, just stop there. Like I know it's hard, and you're right. Yes, I do. And all, I think all of the parents here, I'm sure, and those listening later, we also have best intent. We're wanting to help and protect our children as best we can. And sometimes we just have to stop and say, this is hard for you. I get that. I'm here for you. I'm on your team. And just leave it at that and put the period there. So thank you for that reminder and that framing. Um, it is important.
Of course. Yeah, and I love that you as a parent are saying how hard it is. I mean, it's been a long time since I left my parents' house, and I feel like now that I have kids is like the first time that I'm seeing, oh, my mom's life was really hard in taking care of me. It wasn't just that my life was hard and I was like everything was about me. It was about that it was hard for her too. And the fact that when we didn't say it to each other, it just made it so much harder.
Yep. I appreciate that, Kim. That was a great question. Thank you for asking that and how you framed it too. Independence, good decision making, management, lack thereof, like just helped us tie up a lot of things. I think it goes back to what Carrie, your theme is communicate, 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 talk about it, show up with curiosity and some trust building whenever possible.
Yeah, that was a perfect summary.
Yeah, we are at the end of time. We're going to wrap up here. I did drop a number of links in the chat. Again, Carrie, I just want to thank you on behalf of the Diabetes Link as a whole, myself, also Mila, who's not on this call, but is my fellow caregiver representative here at the Diabetes Link and really built tonight's presentation with you, Carrie. Just thank you for showing up and sharing with our community from your professional perspective and your personal perspective. And just as a note to anyone else here, Blue Circle Health is an incredible resource. They are in 17 states. I have personally referred young adults in our community to Blue Circle Health and actually fellow parents. A parent with someone who's newly diagnosed in Florida who was not getting the resources and couldn't get into an endocrinology appointment for their young adult, and a young adult in another state that was in between resources and literally had like half a vial of insulin left. Um, so Blue Circle Health is an incredible resource for all of the things tactical, uh, emotional, social, all of the things. And we're here too for community and supporting everyone on this journey. So thank you. Check out the links, check out our resources, check out Blue Circle Health Diabetes Link. You can email me at any time. And we'll definitely be glad to connect you. And Carrie, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for everyone who attended and for anyone who's watching afterwards.
Absolutely. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.